Assalamu alaikum, San Bonani, and welcome back to Salam Media, your home of humanitarian journalism. Today's show being hosted by Shabnam Palesa Mohammed. It's been a brilliant show thus far. We've traveled to Sudan and to Nigeria. We've learned about the Boy Cat and the Buy Cat apps, using your economic power to take back power for the 99%. In our last segment, we'll be talking to Menzi Ka Gudu Maseko. He's a Black Power Pan-Africanist scholar and activist with keen interest in social and environmental justice. He serves on the steering committee of the People's Truth and Restoration Commission. He's also a natural health advocate and certainly one of my favorite people in the world. And our topic will be engaging in why the People's TRC is critical for Palestine, Sudan, Congo, and Nigeria. Welcome into conversation, Menzi Maseko.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here. Back to Salam Media.
Absolutely. So you're last but certainly not least, thank you for joining us on very short notice. I'm not sure if you've managed to watch those previous conversations around Sudan, around Nigeria, and of course we're going to continue having conversation with our Congolese part of our family and others. But humanity, it seems at this stage, is under unprecedented attack. We have polycrises, but certainly in the area, including GMO, etc., Menzi, which you're quite familiar with being involved in those campaigns. But we're talking about these kinetic wars that are always about our resources. When we started to talk about the People's TRC, it was going to be for Palestine. And of course, as our conversations continued, we realized that because the suffering is so great and because they are common enemies who are profiteering, we must include Sudan and Congo, and most recently Nigeria, which the American military industrial complex has just threatened to attack. Nigeria, of course, has oil. Your thoughts and perspectives on intersectional solidarity and this concept of the People's TRC?
Indeed. Yes, the intersection of all struggles has never been more dire. I can think of perhaps the only precedents would be around the just before the Second World War, when the various Western powers, the Western tyrants, were basically attacking places such as Ethiopia, Egypt, Sudan, and some of the what are called the Arab countries right now, or any other country that was actually hoping to stand on its own and to self-determine. So it is a war against sovereignty. It's a war against the agency of free peoples to define their own destinies, to define their own wealth and health trajectories, right? So if you can't bombard them with false food and fake food, Coca-Colas and everything else, excuse me if I'm mentioning words, I don't want Salam Media to be sued, but there are all these insidious poisons that are fed into human culture. I'm using the word human culture on purpose because this thing is a global thing whereby real food is removed from the shelves or made more expensive and made exclusive. You know, organic food is supposed to be exclusive and everything. So it's a multi-pronged war, a multi-dimensional war that requires human solidarity at a large scale. I have to say this, Shabnam, because this is the challenge that we face every time when, even if we put up a poster. You know, when I put up our poster earlier this afternoon about today's conversation, there were people who are writing me to say, why are African kings concerned about what's happening in Palestine? I think I have lost the tolerance for people who ask such questions, because for a very long time we've tried to shatter that kind of ignorance, the kind of ignorance that does not see a human life just because that human being does not look like you. You know, so the scourge in Sudan, what's happening in Tanzania, what's happening in Nigeria, what is pending in every single country, every single African country, every single Southern Hemisphere country, actually, is under attack for the past 100 years from those that want to profit from the exploitation of everyone else's resources. So it is quite foolish for people who have the internet in their hands, who have information who are living in the information superhighway to not realize, not, if you can't realize it from a humanitarian perspective, at least realize it from understanding how all these things are interconnected web of economic hitmen trying to make sure that you lose your sovereignty, you lose your sense of humanity, you are numbed to the suffering of other humans merely because they do not look like you. And that
Mm.
war is coming to you each and every day. It's coming to you, but people don't seem to realize this. So we need to push against that kind of ignorance every single day.
That's a powerful start to this conversation. Thank you so much, Menzi, for joining. So, apart from I mean, you made such a good point that if you don't care about the humanitarian nature of why we're connecting struggles, because umuntu gumuntu gabantu, right? I am
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
are, right? That is our African
absolutely.
spirit of Ubuntu. But if you don't care
Mm.
about that, at least the realization that I don't know what to do here, I'm going to decline it. That, that they are, of course, Black Palestinians. They do
Of course,
exist.
of
And of
course.
course, Palestinians are not only Muslim, they're Christian, they're Jewish, they're atheist, and so on
Yes.
and so forth. But
And Palestine
thirdly,
is part of ancient Africa. It's part
of
of
course,
ancient Africa. It was a kingdom
exactly,
that was ruled by pharaohs and people from Sudan
right.
for 1,000 years before it was conquered by the Romans and conquered by the Persians sometime and conquered by the Greeks sometimes. Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Of course, and Ismail Haniya, for example, from the Palestinian resistance, had very clearly noted and appreciated the support that Sudan shows for the cause of Palestine. But even if one
Absolutely.
doesn't care about the human aspect or the
Mm,
history or the
mm,
geography, it's
mm.
very clear that the very same profiteers are involved: Palestine, Sudan,
Absolutely.
Congo,
You must
Nigeria. We
identify
know
them.
that the apartheid settler regime of Israel was and is supporting arms to the RSF, which is massacring the Sudanese people. We know that Israeli billionaires are involved in the chaos in the Congo.
And
We
British
know
and
that
American.
exactly, we know
Mm.
imperialism has its sights set on Nigeria because they have oil and they're also right next to the Sahel region, and that's a way for them to access those countries. We also know imperialism has its sights trained on our country, South Africa, as well.
Absolutely.
So
Through Cape Town.
how do we educate people? How do we help them understand that at least for that reason, the fact that we have common enemies is why we must stand together, especially as the global South?
I think one must stop being, or must not become exasperated, and we must not give up hope that a certain percentage of people are getting it. I think there is a growing awareness, thanks to the Sumud, of course, also recently, thanks to the flotilla, and thanks to King Mandela, and Sister Zugiswa Vana, and many others coming from South Africa and many other places who went on that. So those things are kind of, besides being aid and humanitarian aid, it is actually an awareness campaign that actually raises the consciousness of many people to see that it is a human struggle against tyranny. And tyranny does not care about human spirits, human souls, does not care about even sacred artifacts, does not care about sacred lands, does not care about anything else. All they really care about is victory for their tyranny so that they can keep on profiting from the earth. So the only way to really fight against this kind of ignorance is to keep teaching, keep raising awareness, show people Malcolm X's speeches, show people James Baldwin talking about the Palestinian situation, show people, for example, let me make a quick example. In
Mm,
2002, in July, in Durban, when Thabo Mbeki's administration at that time reconvened the OAU to transform it to the AU, this was supposed to be a step forward, not just for the African Renaissance and for African countries, but for global struggles for human emancipation. The speeches that were given there were in solidarity, not just with Palestine, but with every single country in Southern Africa and the so-called global South, the international South, outer national South.
yes.
So it's global. It's actually human solidarity. It has got nothing to do with the proximity of Palestine, proximity of Sudan, proximity of Tanzania, or proximity of Myanmar, or a place like Papua New Guinea, which are fighting against people that are occupying them. Same struggles in Australia, the same Zionist imperialist people that hate humanity are still loading it. But we will win. We must keep this hope alive. We must keep that sense of knowledge that we will win against this tyranny, because human love and human nature, which is guided by divine inspiration, will always prosper over this evil. It's a must.
Amen to that. So, you remind me of this powerful chant that we often utilize in all of our endeavors and marches, that an injury to one is an
It's an
injury to
injury to
all.
all. And a people
Absolutely. And
united
so
can never be divided.
can never be defeated, right? That's one
Mm,
of our
mm,
rallying cries. And so, certainly, wherever
mm.
there is pain in the world, we must feel it, and we do.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
therefore, what we're seeing coming out of Sudan is so deeply painful. And you see
Too much.
Palestinians commenting on those images and those videos and crying and saying they're feeling the pain so deeply because they know what
Mm.
it's like. And they're
They are
asking
recently
us to
experiencing
please,
it.
of
Mm.
course, and continue to. I mean, there's no ceasefire, right? And they're saying support the Sudanese people, which is
Mm.
such a beautiful reflection of humanity that's connected, right? But
Yes,
also,
absolutely.
Menzi, the very same technologies that have been used to surveil, to attack, to bomb Gaza are the same technologies that are imported to attack Sudan and Congo.
Mm.
And guess what? The same drone warfare, surveillance drones, are also now in the UK and the US. So this is what
Yeah.
is called the imperial boomerang. If you're not paying
Yes.
attention, exactly what they're doing to other people, they will do to
Gonna
you in
happen
the
to
West.
you.
Trump has just announced, I mean, this government shutdown, American politics is the theater of the absurd, but they've cut
Yes.
food stamps.
They're
So the
broke.
very starvation that is being experienced in Palestine, in Sudan, in
It's
Congo,
going to be
etc.,
experienced.
Americans are going to experience it now. Talk to
Mm.
us about some of your reflections on this.
That's interesting because, if you look at America, America is one of the places where homelessness is so rife. And homelessness is due to the very uh, the very nature of private property and the very nature of expensive public housing. When I say public housing, there are certain stipends or certain incentives that people who work in the public enterprise, or in who work for the state, so to speak. You get a subsidy, you get a subsidized house and all that. But you may have the house, but you can't pay for the gas. You may have the house, but you can't pay for water. You may have the house, but you can't afford the school the fees to educate your children and yourself, right? So what is happening with America? It is the nature of capitalist economy to kind of self destruct, and in its self destruction, it has what they may call what is it called, collateral damage, and the collateral damage is always the poor of that country. So people that are kept poor, and they're not poor because they're lazy, they're not poor because they got no jobs. Sometimes they are poor because there's a certain rich class, there's a certain billionaire class that makes sure that they exacerbate these kind of policies. They use policies to keep people depressed, to keep how to bar housing rights by race, by class, and even by gender. There are certain places in America, when you are a working woman who can afford to buy a house in a particular place, they will keep you. And note this: Zionist imperialism functions optimally in the capitalist economy in the US and other places, including the UK, whereby people are being pushed from certain rich areas, certain areas of affluence, so that they can be a certain class or a certain people of affluence, which will usually also serve a certain kind of politics, which is the what you call it, conservative, right wing, neoliberal type of politics, whereby you are looking at individual prosperity without actually looking at how that individual prosperity is reached at the expense of a majority of people that must serve at the altar of mammon, or the altar of the demon of materialism. You see, so it's a global thing. It's got nothing to do with black and white. It is absolutely, I mean, like the socialists have said for many years, it's a class economic struggle that is premised on few people making sure that they have a lot more, and then if they don't care less what everybody else gets, as long as they can step on you and move up and move on forward, and they will tread upon the earth. It's like this thing of fracking or mining, deep sea mining.
Mm,
It's all interconnected. The moment they get rid of they do the mining and devastate that particular part, they move on to another part. South America is filled with holes, many big gaping holes and polluted rivers, just because of very few handful of companies that exploit the earth. So exploitation of
mm,
the earth, exploitation of human beings, and exploitation of women, and exploitation of African people. It's almost like it's a hierarchy. It's just done like that.
mm.
And they're doing the very same thing in Sudan, but they're going through the UAE. The UAE is just a
Yes.
proxy. As much as they are
Mm,
complicit, they are a proxy for a larger war. They just get the
absolutely.
profits. But the ones who actually gets the power is the Zionist imperialists.
100%. Excellent and incisive analysis. And Zayo imperialism, of course, also has its sights set on the Western Cape. So, for those who think
Absolutely.
our struggles are not connected, I think we're going to see a thing or two during the course of the next year at least. So, Menzi, our producer has to leave in 2 minutes. Unfortunately, very quickly, we are now working towards
Come
the
on.
People's Truth and Restoration Commission on Palestine,
TRC.
Sudan, Congo, and Nigeria. Your
Mm,
thoughts on
mm.
why this project is so important?
It is absolutely critical because the TRC, with the big R of restoration,
Mm,
it's the restoration part, the restorative justice part of this Truth and Reconciliation Commission is so important. And what people must know is that it is not our project, it's everyone's project. It's the people's
mm,
TRC. So we must capitalize that P of the people's, because
mm,
uh, unlike the previous TRC that happened here, people kind of felt like it came from the top down. This one is coming
mm,
from the bottom up. It has to be very meaningful. And the only ones who can make it meaningful is the inclusion and the participation of people from the ground, from each and every community, despite whatever party you come from, despite your color of your skin, despite even your ideological framework. What is important is whether truth and justice and reconciliation is achieved by people who want to basically serve humanity and have justice
mhm.
transpire more than tyranny in this world.
Absolutely. And we, of course, are going to invite people to participate as a
Mm.
witness, as an expert,
Yes,
as a whistleblower, to
yes,
participate in the Truth and Restoration Commission. If we can bring up the draft poster, the third poster there, Sadiq, for some reason the system is not letting me do it. There we go. You're invited to testify in the TRC. Well, that's the older
mm,
one. I should have brought up the other one. Nevertheless, we have expanded
yes,
to Palestine, Congo, Sudan, and of course Nigeria. We've been having intense
mm,
discussions, and we do intend to launch the TRC during the 16 days of activism for non-violence against women
absolutely.
and children, very strategically.
And
And we're
symbolic.
asking for people to get involved and support this initiative. We're not going to stop at those 4 countries. The next round
Mm,
is, of course, going to include, unfortunately, Venezuela and Somalia and Cuba and so on and so forth, until we really understand the truth about who our common enemies are. We find ways to support each other in solidarity. We ensure that there is restoration and accountability. And with those who we can reconcile, we will. But unfortunately, that may not
absolutely.
always be possible, right? We've learned
Yes.
that in the South African experience. So,
Mm,
Menzi,
mm,
what is your, and we'll have to do a longer conversation with the steering
mm,
committee on the TRC. What is your
mm.
message to the public about supporting this initiative, the public in any part of the world?
Wherever you see our posters, please follow follow our spaces where we are gathered as a people, united equally. There's no leadership. There's if what is I mean, there's no leaders, there's no single leaders, there's no messiahs in this thing. What is important is your participation is crucial. Without your participation, nothing can happen. It is not
Mm-hmm.
led by institutions for whether the UN or any political parties. It's non-political, and I'm repeating again, non-partisan, but it is about the truth. So your participation is of paramount significance. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
It's important, and we will be translating things into languages of the land. You know, if we're in Nigeria, we'll use the translators there. Here in KZN, we will use the Zulu. In other places, we use even
Mm-hmm.
Afrikaans. You know, it's Afrikaps, as our brothers would say in the Western
Yes.
Cape. You know, we need to use their Afrikaps. They invented it before somebody else came and hijacked it.
Of course,
So
and
in
we
Tanzania, we
do
use
also need
Kiswahili.
yeah, of course, and we need trauma counselors as well. So if you can
Mm.
participate with us,
Step
we're
up.
going to include
Mm.
visual art, we're going to include poetry, and it's going to
Mm.
be a really pioneering experience for the people, by the people. Let's show one more poster, Sadiq, the first one, which is an upcoming event. Uh, okay, let's look at this one first. The TRC for Palestine, Sudan, Congo, and Nigeria, with some
Mhm.
description on the left there, Saturday, 29th November, and the launch highlights on the right. Introduction to the TRC, an overview of the war therapy program, launch of the art exhibition, and of course, poetry and spoken word. So if you would like to support us, do reach out. You'll be able to find our details on various platforms. You're going to see the posters circulating. So let's remove that one and go to the last poster before we let Menzi and Sadiq go. And this is coming up on Monday, the 17th of November. And it is a demo in Durban for Sudan, Congo, and Palestine, 4 to 5 p.m. Central African Time, Monday, 17th November, at the Magistrates Court entrance in Stalwart, Somstew Road. You can dress in your law or medical attire or just bring a sign to show your support. And on the left, there's a petition you can sign to encourage the ICC to do right by Palestine and eventually do right
Absolutely.
by Africa as well. So do support and
Implementation.
join on Monday, the 17th. Any final words from you? I think we can remove the poster. Thank you, Sadiq.
No final word besides that these posters must spread, they must spread out. I hope people of Durban, but people of Durban, we trust you. Sometimes you come in trips and drabs, but come in full, come in your numbers for this one because it is very important. We're going towards the end of the year. Cosmically, it's been a very busy year in the skies, but these are just signs for people to step up and become the best that they can be. And how best can you serve humanity? But just to show up and stand in
Show up.
solidarity with those who are struggling and those who are suffering from the tyranny of the unjust. Just show up, be
Mhm.
there, you know.
Be there and show the power of the people. Thank you, Menzi Maseko, for joining us today on Salam Media. And of course, we'll continue working
Salam.
towards a liberated world and every part of it. Thank you so much. Assalamu
Akube njalo.
alaikum and
Peace and
hambe
love.
kahle.
Ukuthula.
And thank you to our audience for joining us, Sadiq, our technical producer. And please do share the links to this show tomorrow and the rest of the week. Such important conversations that we have to share with the rest of the world so that people are aware. And the last few words as we come to the end of our time together, let the connections we've made tonight settle in your spirit. We've connected the dots from the scorched earth of El Fashir and Darfur to the political pressure of Abuja, to the global boycott lines we learned through Palestine, to the need for truth and restoration to the TRC. We see the patterns, it's the same playbook of domination used against different people, but we also see the powerful, beautiful, and unstoppable response, our unified solidarity. Solidarity is not a passive feeling, it's not a hashtag, it's a verb, it's a commitment, it is a strategic force. So here's your mission for Sudan: become a megaphone. For Nigeria, educate your networks. For Palestine and other parts of the world, make your spending a political act. And of course, champion the People's Truth and Restoration Commission. They want us to divide. The road to liberation is long, but we will win for the future of our shared humanity. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Stay informed, stay united, and keep working towards a world that is truly free. My name is Shabnam Palesa Mohammed, and you've been watching Salam Media.